Well, hello, it's Morgan from Wild Dogs, and today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite training commands and how we can implement them into your everyday routine. Let's get started. The first command we're going to talk about is kennel and or crate. You call it whatever you want. I like to call it kennel. Kennel is going to be putting your dog inside of a crate where they're going to sleep or take naps during the day or at nighttime. I recommend for the first year of a dog's life that you have them sleep in their kennel and go in their kennel when you're away, because ultimately it's going to be the safest place for them. When our dogs have a little bit too much free access, they can get into trouble. They can start counter surfing, they can get into the trash, they can start tearing up the floor. So in order to prevent them from getting bored and getting into trouble, the safest place for them to be while you're away is going to be in their kennel. You don't have to feel bad about kenneling your dog as long as they're getting enough training and exercise on a daily basis. It's okay for them to have some alone time in their kennels. Next, let's talk about my least favorite command, which may surprise you, is sit. I just don't like sit because it's not a very comfortable position for the dogs to hold for long periods. I do like using sit for something quick and easy though. Here's some examples. I like to make the dogs sit before they get pet. I like to make them sit before they get dinner. I like to make them sit before they're allowed on furniture, like a couch or a bed. And most importantly, I like to use it before they're allowed to go outside. Going outside is a really big reward for them, so putting them into a sit is a quick and easy way for them to earn that walk or earn that playtime. So think of sit as just a way to make them stop, think, and focus on you before they earn that love, attention, playtime, dinner, or couch with you. Next, let's talk about down. Down I do think is more useful because your dog can be in that position because it's more comfortable for them to hold for longer periods. And it's a good one to use when you're out in public settings. Anytime you need your dog to be in a calm, relaxed position, my go-to is gonna be down. So maybe you're shopping at Home Depot. Maybe you're out at the coffee shop. Or even if you're just chatting with your neighbor over at the mailbox, it's nice to have your dog in a calm, relaxed position down at your feet. Now here's the trick with down. What I don't make the habit of is saying sit down, sit down. Why? Because then those two commands are gonna start to blend together, and then before you know it, your sit and your down mean the exact same thing. So it is important to separate these two commands. Sit is the upright position with their booty on the floor. Down is going to be elbows flat, tummy hitting the deck. So make sure that you are making it really clear with your dog the difference between these two commands. If you want them to sit, just say sit, and if you want them to down, just say down. Moving on to my favorite command of all time, it's going to be place. So place is teaching your dog to go to a boundary and stay there. What you're going to notice with these three commands we've talked about, sit, down, and place, is that I don't teach the dog stay. In all three of these commands, stay is implied. I'm not actually saying the word, but I'm implying that concept in these commands. So it's one less command for you to have to say, one less for your dog to have to learn. So place is going to be a boundary stay. I like to use an elevated dog bed when training place and working on it because it's a really clear boundary for your dog. They get up on the little trampoline thing, they get snacks. If they take a step off of it, they feel the leash pressure. So it's a really clear boundary, which makes it a really easy command to train and to keep up with. And I use it for dogs in all kinds of different ways. It's great to help teach them an off switch. So for those dogs that like to pace around the house and just can't seem to relax, this is a great way to teach them how to relax. The biggest rule of this is that the dog has to go to the boundary and stay there. The boundary can be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be an elevated dog bed. I like to use those because it's a real clear boundary for the dog, but it can also be a regular dog bed. It can be a picnic table. It can be a rock. It can be a fire hydrant. It can be a blanket on the floor. It can be your front porch. Place can literally be any boundary that you can help your dog identify. And that's the key here, is you have to help them identify what that boundary is. And there are going to be more difficult boundaries than others. So your front porch or a rug are going to be more difficult boundaries because they're vague or they're really flush with the floor, so it's harder for them to identify, versus an elevated surface is going to be easier for them to identify. The point here is that you can place your dog on all kinds of different surfaces. It's just up to you to teach them that concept. So here's some ways that I like to use place in my everyday routine. I love placing dogs anytime I have guests come over. This is a great way to prevent dogs from running over to the door and jumping on your guests. Instead, every time I hear a knock, 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 I send the dog to their bed, I go to the front door and open it, and right there is when I like to prep my guests and say, hey, I have my dog in training right now. If you could just ignore them for a little bit. We're working on calm, relaxed behavior. And then it prevents your dog from running and getting overly excited and jumping on your guests. So it adds that separation from your dog and the guests and prevents that jumping scenario from ever happening altogether. Another way I like to use this is every time I sit down and eat. It's a great time to practice because if you're sitting down and eating, you're likely in a good place to follow through with this command. And that's really important. Anytime you tell your dog a command, you need to make sure that you're in a good headspace to follow through with that command. If you've had a really long, busy day at work and you're just really tired, I'd rather you not say commands at all than say a command and not follow through with it. Our dogs are extremely smart and always paying attention to what we do, so they pick up on those habits and those routines when you do and when you don't follow through. So if you aren't in a place to follow through, don't say these commands. But usually when you're sitting down and cooking a meal and eating dinner, you're in an okay mindset to stop what you're doing and go follow through if your dog happens to get off the bed. So if you're a breakfast time person, a lunch person, or a dinner person, you can make an everyday routine that every time you sit down and eat, even if it's just one meal a day, your dog can go to their dog bed, and bonus, they can actually earn their meal that way too. So you can make this a breakfast routine or a dinner time routine. I personally like to place my dog at dinner time every night. I put her on place, I scoop her food in the bowl, and I put the bowl directly on the bed. And then this is a great way to prevent a table beggar. There's nothing worse than having a big nose right on your lap, drooling and slobbering when you're just trying to eat your slice of pizza. So in order to prevent that from ever happening, you can have your dog over on their bed while you guys enjoy your dinner. The rules of place: there's no jumping, no barking, and most importantly, no getting off. When they're on the dog bed, you're not saying any other commands. The only command you're going to be using is place. However, if your dog sits, or even better, relaxes and goes into a down, you're going to either give them a treat or a belly rub or just give them some sort of positive feedback to let them know that was the right decision. So ultimately what we're doing is reinforcing calm, relaxed behavior on the dog bed. We're not telling them to do it. We're not asking for a down. We're letting it be the dog's own idea. They're choosing to do it all on their own, and we're just teaching them that was the best idea that they've ever had. Because place is a pretty easy command, and it's a little bit more lenient than a sit or a down, there is no time limit to this. You can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for an hour. That really comes down to you and your attention span and how long you want to stay focused in keeping your dog in that command. If you've only got 5 minutes to place them, 5 minutes is better than nothing. If you want to sit down and watch an hour-and-a-half long movie and have them on place through the entire thing, chewing on a bone, that's going to be a great time to practice it as well. So place your dog when it's most convenient for you, but find ways to incorporate it in little ways every single day. Some additional details to place: you can have one bed in each room, or you can have one bed that moves to multiple rooms. You can really mold this command to your needs. I personally find that the dogs are a little bit more successful if you have one bed in a consistent location. This way, every time you tell your dog place, they know exactly where to go, no matter where you are in the house. If the bed tends to move to different locations every single day, it's not going to be consistent and the dog isn't going to know where to go. So I like to have a bed in every room, but that's not always reasonable in every household, so do what works best for you and your dog. Moving on to some more fun commands, let's talk about heel. So I use the command heel to teach my dog to walk at my side. I like my dog to walk on the left because most people are right-handed and you want your dominant hand free to answer your phone, open the door, wave at the neighbor. The whole point is that your dominant hand is free and your left hand isn't doing a whole lot of work, but just holding on to your dog. It's really your personal preference if you want them on the left or the right. Just know that you have to stay consistent with that concept. Whichever side you want, stay consistent with just that one side. Some rules to heeling: there's no sniffing the ground. There's no going to greet a stranger. There's no going to greet another dog. Now, that's not to say they can never do those things. It just means that when they're in the heel command, their attention and focus should be on you and not on their surroundings. Now, if you want to stop and release them with a free command, then they can do whatever they want. They can sniff, they can potty, they can say hi, but you really want to lean into keeping them in command and keeping them focused on you. Your dog should be walking at your pace. They should stop when you stop. They should go when you go. If you turn right, They should go with you. If you turn left, they should get out of your way. A lot of this is going to be you guys getting in sync together. The more your dog is focused on you, the better that walk is going to feel. I personally don't ever like dogs to say hello to another dog at the end of a leash or say hi to a person at the end of the leash. That means they're being rewarded by outside sources. I don't care about their relationship with other people or other dogs. I care about their relationship with the owner or with the handler. So instead, I want all good things to come close to me and not on the outside. So it's okay to release your dog if you want them to go sniff. It's okay to release your dog to go say hi to someone else. You can use the command free or okay for that. But the whole point is that when they're in heel, they're working and their attention and focus should stay on you at all times. Now let's talk about my favorite recall command. I like to use the word here. And when I'm practicing the here command, I always have a high value treat and I always have my training equipment on the dog. This command is really life or death. This is what saves dogs' lives. If your dog busts through the front door and runs into the street, or takes off after a bunny and you let go of the leash, you really need a reliable way to get your dog to come back to you every time. Here's why your dog might not like coming back to you. Us humans have a really bad habit of taking away. So if you build this pattern of your dog comes back to you and you stick them in their kennel, your dog comes back to you and you put a leash on, your dog comes back to you, you pick them up and bring them inside or take them away from playtime with another dog, you're building this habit of taking away. Why would they want to come back to us if we continue to take all the good stuff away? So instead, have a high value treat, throw them a huge party for coming back to you, and then additionally, we're gonna let them go right back to what they were doing. So we're not taking anything away, we're just adding something good and letting them go right back to it. 90% of the time, we should be adding when we say this command. 10% of the time is gonna be real life when those emergency situations happen. It's raining outside, you have to have them come in. They run into the street, you have to call them back over across the road. So 10% of the time, it's just gonna be those emergency situations. 90% of the time, it's just gonna be that fun game. And if you really lean into that 90%, your dog's gonna have an extremely reliable recall for that other 10% of the time. Some examples of high value treats that I like to use when I train this are string cheese, hot dogs, boiled chicken, pizza crust, anything that's not gonna upset their stomach, but they don't get any other time except for when they hear this special word, here. Let's get into a release command. A release command tells your dog that they're finished performing the command that you just put them into. This command is honestly more important than the rest because it tells them when they're finished. We're really used to throwing out words and throwing out commands and putting our dog into these positions, but we're not always so used to telling them when they're done. And if we don't tell them when they're finished, they decide when they're finished, and then before you know it, your dog will go onto their dog bed for all of 5 minutes and then get off because you're distracted and they're bored. So remember to release your dog using the command free. And last but not least, we're going to talk about no and good. No is going to be your umbrella term for any behaviors we want to communicate we don't like. So that might be for mouthing, for jumping, for counter surfing, for poop eating, for playing too rough with another dog. No is going to mean stop doing that behavior. But now we have all these new obedience commands to show them a better alternative. A good example of this is going to be no for jumping, good for sitting. No is going to be our negative marker. Now, our positive marker can be good or yes. I tend to say good. With this one, you just want to be really fun and bubbly. You pair it with a treat, with a belly rub, with a kiss on the nose. You want to tell them that this means they're doing the right thing. And that's going to be balanced training. Clearly communicating when you don't like what they're doing and clearly communicating when you do like what they're doing so they have a better understanding of what our expectations are of them. No, I don't like it when you counter surf. Yes, I do like it when you get out of the kitchen. No, I don't like it when you dig. Yes, I do like it when you go play with your toys. So just as much as you might be telling your dog no a lot, you should also be telling them good just as much, if not more. The key to a good training session isn't necessarily going to be sitting down for a straight hour and practicing all these commands at one time. Instead, I like to incorporate these commands into your everyday routine. You can make your dog sit before they go outside to go potty or sit before they go for walks. You can make them place every time you sit down for dinner or when you have people come over. You can take them for daily walks. Even if it's only for 5 minutes, something is better than nothing. If you spend 5 minutes in your driveway doing circles, working on the heel command, that is more beneficial than you know. You still should be kenneling them at nighttime and when you're away. And a fun, easy way that you can work on your recall command is doing it in your backyard or even in your house. As your dog is just distracted with their back turned, not paying attention to you, just randomly call them back to you and make sure that you're reinforcing it with a high value treat every single time they come back to you. So the key to training is just doing it all throughout the day. You don't have to have these long drawn out sessions. You can just do it in small little ways all throughout the day. Now, if you do want to do sessions, I would say ideally you could do 2 15 to 30 minute sessions a day, really depending on your dog's attention span. For some dogs, short, sweet sessions do better. For other ones, one long drawn out one, they do perfectly fine with. That's really gonna depend on your attention span as well as your dog's. So personally, my favorite commands are kennel, sit, down, place, heel, here, free, no, and good. And that's all, folks. These are the ones that I find to be most successful with, but at the end of the day, you could also teach your dog banana. It really doesn't matter, but you wanna stay very clear and consistent with what you say. Your dog is going to behave at the level you hold them to. If you let them slack off and not be consistent with this, then that's how good they're gonna do. So make sure that you're doing this daily training. Don't make it too hard for yourself. Do a little bit of this stuff every single day and you're gonna see huge results. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for sticking around. I hope you learned a lot. I'll see you in the next one. Stay wild, dogs.